Nuts to this.
The MonsterVerse is the brainchild of Legendary Pictures and my 8-year-old self, which took all of Toho's famous kaiju creations and merged them with King Kong and the whole Skull Island mythos so that eventually Godzilla and Kong could fight in an expensive and loud flick that would amuse children and children at heart who'd been waiting for a remake to the titular Battle Royale since Toho's original rubber-suited showdown in 1962. The first movie in the MonsterVerse is 2014's Godzilla. In it, Bryan Cranston tries to unearth the mystery of his wife's death in a nuclear power plant collapse, but then he almost immediately dies and his boring as fuck army son gets called to duty to deal with two giant insect creatures as well as Godzilla, an ancient radioactive skyscraper-sized grumpy lizard with bad breath. Boring army son and his wife, Scarlet Witch, don't do much to advance the plot. San Francisco gets leveled as the giant kaiju fight in the dark.
It was computer-generated, people. Why couldn't they just add a few more lights here and there?
And then the remaining humans cheer as Godzilla wanders off back into the ocean to sleep off his bug-induced injuries in one of the most bizarre scenes of survivor's guilt the world has ever known. Then came the flashback movie of Kong, Skull Island. It's 1973 and Dan Connor, Nick Fury, Loki, Captain Marvel, and Nova Corpsman Roman Day find themselves in Skull Island just as the Vietnam War winds down. They're all attacked by a pissed-off giant ape, the king of Kongs himself. Nick Fury decides that he wants to kill the hairy monster because of nah, man, while the others just want to get the fuck off the prehistoric, horrific, and creepy as fuck island, which they eventually do, leaving Kong to his own poo-throwing devices as they head back to civilization. After that came Godzilla, King of the Monsters.
And it was amazing to my inner 6-year-old self.
It was the best parts of all the old Toho Godzilla films from the Heisei era, the movies from 84 to 95, mixed with Godzilla Final Wars. The super science that humanity had developed at the time was light years ahead of the previous Godzilla flick. Some of the jumps in logic of the plot were a little much, and the human characters were even more obnoxious and annoying in this movie than the 2014 Godzilla movie, but who gives a shit when you have giant monster fights like this going on? King of the Monsters is what my 5 to 12-year-old self would have made if he were ever given the budget to create a monster movie of his own. Is it perfect? No, but it is a great Godzilla flick. Then came the grand matchup, Godzilla vs. Kong. Since the 70s, Skull Island has been all but destroyed by the unending storm surrounding it. Godzilla has started attacking certain cities and Apex cybernetic scientific manufacturing centers for some reason, and instead of investigating Apex to see if they're doing something shady to incur Godzilla's wrath, the world just shits all over Godzilla instead. In order to find a power source to juice up Apex's super kaiju fighting giant robot, Mechagodzilla, the boring as all fuck humans kidnap Kong from Skull Island to take him to an entrance to the Hollow Earth where they just know this power source resides. Godzilla and Kong fight at sea and Godzilla trounces the giant ape. Kong then gets ballooned to the Hollow Earth where he finds a giant axe his ancestors made from an ancient Godzilla dorsal plate, and this somehow activates the power source that Apex wants. Apex then somehow digitizes the energy signature. What? And emails it to their Hong Kong base just as Godzilla starts attacking it. Godzilla uses the Force to feel that Kong is 1,000 miles below him at that exact spot in Hong Kong, and then he nuclear breath blasts a hole in the ground directly to him. What? Kong then climbs that tunnel in 30 seconds. Seriously, he's 100 miles below him. What? And they fight. Godzilla wins again. Meanwhile, Apex uses their new power to jumpstart Mechagodzilla, and then the dead monster brain that they use to control it shorts out, and then Mechagodzilla breaks loose and tears Godzilla a new one. Kong gets his dying heart kicked into gear by the forgotten humans, even though defibrillators don't work that way. Seriously, Hollywood, god damn it, stop using this shitty trope. And then he and Godzilla reach an understanding and go all Captain America and Bucky and Iron Man on Godzilla. They win, Godzilla goes back into the ocean, and Kong finds a new home in the Hollow Earth. Oh, and Millie Bobby Brown has the worst arc of any human characters in any kaiju movie ever. It was so dumb and just cringy, and the other two annoying characters with her in this movie made me hate her character even more. Fuck them humans, taking up valuable Kong and Godzilla time like this. What do I think of the MonsterVerse? Overall, I love it. I have been a Godzilla fan since I was a toddler. Really, my first drawing I ever remember making is a crayon picture of Godzilla on the underside of my parents' coffee table when I was 3 years old, and I loved the original King Kong, which played every Thanksgiving on some UHF station in New Jersey where I grew up. I think that Legendary Films did an admirable job of making us care about giant city-destroying monsters, and they really made us feel for Kong, who had way more personality than all the human characters in all these movies combined.
Other than Nick Fury.
I love how all the super science in these movies is just there. How did they get that dome around Kong on Skull Island? How did humanity in just a few years go from not knowing about Godzilla to making giant flying fortresses and mechanical versions of the great beast himself? How? I don't care. They're Godzilla movies. I rolled with it in the original Japanese flicks, and I'll go with the flow in these movies too. I mean, the heaves were straight out of Godzilla Returns. Go Super X! And I loved how Mechagodzilla actually looked like something the humans would have built for once, instead of just something that could be worn by a man in a rubber suit. I do have a few questions though. The super science I give a pass on, but why is the entrance to the Hollow Earth a Stargate? And why can't they ever write decent human characters in kaiju movies whom you actually care about? I know you can't make a 2-hour movie that only features the giant mutant monsters destroying stuff, but I'd like to at least give more than a rat's fart about the humans we have to follow instead. Now, these are not smart movies. They're actually pretty dumb overall, and G vs. K is the dumbest by far, and that's saying a lot. There were so many jumps in logic and little kids fixing problems
That adults cause.
cause like
Children are the future, man.
and all that shit. And Gia, Kong's BFF, was under constant surveillance when talking to Kong on Skull Island for all these years. How in the hell did she ever teach him sign language in secret? And how in one of the most populous cities in the world, talking about Hong Kong, did Millie and her dad find each other in less than 2 minutes, especially when 90% of the town was turned into Nagasaki 1945 by Kong Godzilla and Mechagodzilla just minutes before? Did I hate anything in these movies? Yes. Oh yeah, I detested Millie Bobby Brown's story arc in Godzilla vs. Kong. Totally unnecessary, and I loathed her character and personality throughout the entire flick. I give the monster fights and destruction in all these movies a solid A. The plots, though, are pretty weak, and they got weaker with every movie to the point where G vs. K was just get the two monsters to fight. Overall plots, C+. The human elements in these movies, well, I give Kong's humans a B. Not because their stories are well done, but I liked how they worked with Kong. The Godzilla humans all sucked after they killed off Bryan Cranston in under 20 fucking minutes in the first movie. Millie Bobby Brown and her mentally handicapped gang, though, get a D-. No, you know what? Fuck it. They get an F. They failed. They were horrible. They were just painful as all fuck when on screen, especially in G vs. K. They were supposed to be the comic relief and were simply awful the entire way through and made me root for the skull crawlers and Mechagodzilla when they encountered them. Lame gags, terrible lines, and the dumbest jumps in logic all belong to Millie and the gang. Watch them or not, I really don't care. But if you ever besmirch the names of Godzilla, Kong, Rodan, Ghidorah, Mothra, hell, even Gamera in front of me, we will have a problem.